Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in for our Advantage Sports Tourism webinar. I appreciate everybody taking the time to jump on and try and find some stuff out about the World Cup and Super Bowl and all sorts of other activities this year that we think are going to drive some interesting demand for your business. Um, right now, we've got some people coming in, so I wanted to take some time to let everybody come in at their own pace. But I wanted to also get us started by introducing KeyData, our partner for today, coming to bring some really valuable insights over. Uh, this is Taylor Berry, coming to bring some very nice information. So I want to let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor, yes, and I have been in the industry for 11 years now. I'm super excited to talk about key data. I've been with key data for 8 years, so this is kind of my bread and butter, just talking about data and numbers regularly. So happy to be here.
Yeah, that's we're so excited to pair with KeyData too. I think as a lot of people are familiar, you guys are pretty industry setting folks in data and insights and demand driven stuff. So we're going to get some really valuable details out of this. I also wanted to introduce joining us from the Expedia group site, Brandon. Brandon, if you could take a second and introduce yourself to the Escapia folks on the call here, who is on mute. Yes.
You have to unmute him?
Oh, I have to unmute you. Well, in that case, I apologize. Let me do some quick uh, setting stuff here. What is a panelist, uh, and what is a presentation without a little bit of
Hey, what's up?
problems on the start? There we go. All right, I clicked the right button. This is Brandon.
Professional Zoommanship we have going on here.
That's
What is a
right.
Zoom meeting without hiccup? Brandon Ehrhardt, based in Chicago. Really looking forward to dive to broaden the scope past World Cup after Taylor goes, and give you guys insight on whether it's the World Cup or if it's an under 12 soccer tournament, how you can grow your business. Sports tourism is real. I lived it. I am living in Chicago, but I went to Indiana University, and I spent the past 2 months of my life following the IU football team around. So based on the dollars I spent in Pasadena, Atlanta, and Miami in both vacation rentals primarily and one hotel, I'm telling you, tourism is real, and we'll bring data from many people, not just me, to back that up.
Perfect. Well, with that, I want to go ahead and get us started, get right into the insights. I'm going to hand this over to Taylor to cover some of the most important findings that we've got here for the World Cup.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about the World Cup. Brandon, that was a really great pitch there. I have been in the industry, like I said, for a while, and I'm based in Panama City Beach. So, in general, sports tourism is huge, and I've loved seeing how destinations even work together to bring in big sporting events for their smaller local markets. I mean, you might be in Panama City Beach and you're not in Miami where there's going to be a World Cup event, but of course, tracking the right data is still very important. So, um, we all know that the World Cup is massive, but what's most important is like how the demand is behaving. So we pull actuals from bookings in data. So we integrate directly with property management systems like Scapia, and we pull in those actuals to say, hey, this is what's booked right now as of this time to make sure you're not just looking at the projections, but actual reservation activity. And what we're seeing, it's not a uniform surge, like it's pretty concentrated, which is how we're able to know like this is coming from that World Cup. So the first next slide here is looking at the schedule release. So immediately after the match schedule was released, demand spiked, but it was only in a handful of the breakout markets. So you could see here Kansas City, Philadelphia, Boston. These markets accounted for a disproportionate share of the year-over-year gains, which really just means like that growth is not evenly spread across all the host markets, as we could see where that kind of picked up. So this is looking at those actuals again, where those bookings were for that first week of December last year in 2024 compared to December of 2025. Seeing an 82% book in that is pretty big, and that's how we can really tell that it's concentrated. So it's telling us that this booking behavior is reactive and event specific and not just that, oh, the World Cup's coming, but oh, now I know who's playing there, when they're playing, and that's where I'm going to book and where I'm going to stay versus just saying I'm just going to be there because it's the World Cup. Demand growth is the primary year-over-year growth driver. So this chart is showing that performance for the event window is being driven by the volume and not the price. So in nearly every market, the net reservation per property growth dwarfs ADR growth. So indicating there's a stronger booking velocity per listing rather than aggressive rate inflation. Boston and Kansas City are standing out as their demand surges, while markets like LA, San Francisco, New York, New Jersey, they appear demand constrained, so suggesting like limited upside from pricing alone. So across most of the host markets, the net reservation per property growth is significantly outpacing ADR growth. Boston and Kansas City, they're extreme demand outliers, and operators who are waiting to price up before opening their inventory, they might miss that opportunity as people are booking now, or if you're to like, oh, I just increase my rates, but it's not it's a volume event. It's not a luxury like rate event. So at least at this stage. So we just want to make sure we're being more competitive with that. And we'll talk more through, how it's important to kind of track that as well. If you guys do have a key data dashboard, I'm going to kind of add this part in here. We have World Cup templates that we have built and worked through. So if you're in one of the host cities and you want to have that, you can work with your partner success manager to get a World Cup dashboard built. So that focuses on the dates of when the events are happening in your market to help you track the demand and the ADRs, what people are booking for during that time frame, and how you can be strategic. In this next one is showing the matrix reinforces that volume is the dominant strategy for the year. So markets like Boston, Kansas City, and Philadelphia, they're achieving outsized revenue growth through the demand acceleration rather than ADR pressure. So meanwhile, markets with rate growth but limited volume, so they've got higher rates, they've got less bookings, they see that muted revenue performance. So it's underscoring that pricing alone is insufficient in the event cycle. Um, High performing markets are clustering in high volume. Revenue gains are being explained by reservation count, not aggressive ADR spikes. Like I said, I think that's always very common. It's like, oh, yeah, we're going to have a concert here. We're going to have an event. I'm just going to raise my rates. But that could put you in a bad place as well, as it's like, well, sure, you did that, but there's 20 units similar to yours that are more competitive, lower prices. So I'm not going to book you. And then you kind of miss out on what the actual competitive rate could be, and then you're forced to lower your rate as time gets closer. So very few markets are achieving that price-led growth. So it's you've got to be strategic on that. So your strategy should prioritize conversion and availability over rate inflation entirely. So the West Coast destinations, in that next slide, they are seeing significantly smaller surges. Um, Go ahead, Garrett, one more there. No. How'd you get to the last one? There we go. Okay. West Coast destinations are seeing significantly smaller surges. So there's no semifinal or final matches there. Flight geography favors in the East Coast too. So US soccer fan base is kind of concentrated in the East Coast, we found too. So if you're on the Coast, this is not really like a pricing problem. So don't worry that you need to like drop your rates immediately. It's really just like the demand intensity there, right? So you're just not going to see as many as what we're going to see Kansas City, Philadelphia. Those are where a lot of that bigger surge is. Okay. And then shortening stays is so next slide. Shortening stays are a key behavioral shift this year. So rather than fewer long bookings, travelers are making more shorter stays, which mechanically boost your NRPP while keeping your average daily rate growth muted. This pattern aligns closely with the demand-driven growth observed earlier and suggests that volume gains are being supported by changes in trip structure. So not just higher traveler counts, but it's just how they're staying in those shorter stays. World Cup stays are shortening across most of the host markets, and we're seeing trip fragmentation, so shorter stays, more bookings, and how that value is too. So making sure, like if there is minimum stay strategies need to be flexible. If you are someone that continues to say 7 night stays, which I really think we've gotten past that over the last 5 years to say, you could be missing out though if you're requiring certain things. Like some people are just trying to get in and out, watch the match, leave, whatever they can do for that time, and just kind of adding that into their normal routines and lives. So just make sure you're being pretty flexible. And then on my final slide, just showing the 2026 World Cup pacing performance is being driven by demand. That's what we've talked about, and booking frequency, not your pricing power. So make sure you optimize for conversion and availability, not just rate. Expect divergence between your markets and treat the West Coast as a demand limited, not price limited currently. So don't freak out and lower your rates is my biggest thing there is you may see less demand in what you're seeing in other markets. So just make sure you're being strategic and you're using a competitive data source to provide you with actuals too. The operators who end up winning this event are ones who manage availability and conversion strategy, not just raising their rates, right? So you're going to get the most, and that's in everything, right? That's every event, that's every spring break, every summer break. It's just being really strategic and tracking what people are booking for, when they're booking, just making sure you're following those key performance indicators and everything. So, yeah, and I mean, I guess now that we've looked at the demand and how it's shaping everything, I think Brandon's got some things to walk through for Escapia and Expedia Group.
Indeed. Taylor, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So I saw your data. I thought it was super, super, super interesting. And I'm obviously trying to understand it and thought there were some good cues. We think about like a Philadelphia or a Kansas City and like I don't know, I guess over relative performance. How much of that is because those markets are not traditional vacation rental strongholds? Like,
Yeah.
so said differently, are those numbers even more inflated
Yeah.
because there was such a low base booked last year?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely say that. Like if we have an event that takes place in any market that is like these are very low tourism. It's not like you're looking at Panama City Beach. Miami is going to be a big one, I'd say, that when we start to see the difference in there is that is a more tourism centric market. But yeah, that definitely plays into it. But these property managers in these markets, I'm sure they are just absolutely thrilled by this to be able to produce these type of numbers and metrics to their owners, right? It's like, wow, look what we've done for the past year. Look what we're expecting, and it's so wonderful for them to get to capture that. So I love how they've spread it out, and it is in these cities that aren't like New York or like it's not as big as the Kansas City and Philadelphia shows will be.
I imagine those folks in those markets with VRs are as happy as they could be.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so we're going to continue to talk a little bit about soccer or football, depending on your perspective. We're also going to make it tangible and relevant to you, regardless of whether if you're in a World Cup city or not. If you're in World Cup city, great. We're going to give you some ideas to grow your business when the World Cup isn't happening, as well as while it's going on. And if you're outside those markets, you're going to find something for yourself too. Yeah. So as we advance and talk about like, is this a real thing? Why does it matter? $1.3 trillion projected value of the global sports fan market by 2030. So this is real dollars. And obviously it's not all segmented to vacation rental hosts, but I think hosts have one of the more clear-cut opportunities, and we're going to get into why. So let's talk about Fan Voyage and what that is and how it's going to lend to really clear, actionable takeaways for you all. Fan Voyage is some research that we've done here at Expedia Group. It's conducted over the last 12 months, and it was meant to inform our plans as people travel for the Winter Olympics happening now, FIFA World Cup happening this summer. Talked to 2,000 respondents in 8 countries. So those eight, the UK, US, Canada, France, Germany, Australia, Japan, and Mexico, all countries that we think travel quite significantly internationally, and the data back that up. So as we lean into kind of the next view on Fan Voyage here, let's talk about three different cohorts: global events, regional events, and local events. And I'm going to attempt to define those, although depending on who's defining them, they could be quite different. A global event is somewhere where there is global traffic to attend. So if we think about how this plays out in the field of soccer, while the World Cup is likely a global event, the Columbus Crew playing on Tuesday night in Columbus, likely not a global event, more so a regional event. People from around the area are coming in. Local events are a little bit of a misnomer. We're calling them local events because they're relatively small in scale. They're generally events that don't have fans outside of the people who are playing in the sport. So, regional event, Columbus Crew soccer game, local event, under 12 soccer tournament happening in Columbus. Advancing. Let's talk about what we observed. So, absolutely an explosion. And I think part of it is there's been more focus on travel writ large post-COVID. I think we all did not enjoy not being able to go where we wanted when we wanted to. And so travel is growing and people are getting really specific about buying experiences over buying things. One reason things have gotten really expensive. Experiences have gotten a little bit more expensive, but they're also more memorable. And there is a general trend in travel outside of sports that says we believe travel is going to continue to become this important to people's like lives, daily lives and cultures and how they experience different things that happen in the world, whether it's a sporting event or a music concert, like we all saw Taylor Swift. And maybe you've seen the documentary, which was actually mind-blowing how they took that large show on the road. So for local sports experience, we've seen over 100% in social media mentions. This is things that we have scraped. It's not from the 2,000 people we interviewed. This is all from what we've been able to ascertain across the world. We've also seen regional sports culture really blow up. I'm going to take a layer down into that and define it for you here in a minute on what some of those things are. Some of them you know, some of them you don't, but we're going to educate you on both today. 190 million person reach here as it comes to social media mentions. And then lastly, this is really critical for all. It's not just about the sporting event. 81% of people are traveling beyond the event location. So that means people come to Chicago to watch the Chicago Bears play the Green Bay Packers in the playoff. They're also doing something beyond that neighborhood. They're going to the Lincoln Park neighborhood in Chicago to see zoo lights, or they're going to the West Loop or to the further west suburbs of Chicago for great food options that exist. It's not just people coming in for the night and then leaving, which is why I think this becomes such an important audience for vacation rental hosts who really want to drive length of stay. All right, let's talk about some fun sporting events. Banana ball, Savannah Bananas. I didn't even know this existed 3 years ago, and now I can't escape it. I've got a guy doing a black flip on live TV and falling over. They're on ESPN. Anywhere you go, you're seeing the Savannah Bananas, and people are traveling to see them. They're going to continue to take that show on the road. I liken them to as much of like a touring rock band as a sporting event. They're taking a concept and they're moving it around the country and creating opportunity, whether you're in, Kansas City or you're in Savannah, Georgia. They also still play home games. Um, Kabaddi exploded 377% year-over-year growth. So huge in India, becoming more of a global sport based on the way the Olympics are going. I think that I can see this as a summer Olympic sport before too long. So we're putting on your radar now. Of the truly absurd fashion, cheese rolling. I actually saw cheese rolling a couple of years ago, and I was like, people do this. Not only do people do this, people travel to watch other people chase cheese down a hill. It seems incredibly dangerous. I'm not athletic enough to do this. I'd have 100 broken bones, but they're doing it, and they're doing it in Great Britain and the UK. Muay Thai boxing. I think people are familiar with Muay Thai. Specifically in Thailand, we've seen this continue to grow. Similar to sumo wrestling, there is a cultural component where in Japan, sumo wrestling continues to become important and to penetrate different age segments. So as we think about, younger folks getting involved into all of these, they're really the growth driver. And so as the youth go and the size of that cohort and their willingness to travel, we've got to stay on top of the trends. Which leads us to our last and sixth one, Monster Jam. And Monster Jam has always been aimed at the most youthful amongst us children. I got a hand up. Never thought I'd be a Monster Jam person. 2 weeks ago, we drove down to Indianapolis with my 6-year-old son to Monster Jam, and it was at the Colts Stadium, the Indianapolis Colts Stadium, Lucas Oil. Holds about 72,000 people, and there are about 55,000 people there. So a great room night driver, both for the hotels and the vacation rental hosts in that area. We actually ended up, thinking about a vacation rental host because of the space we needed. And Monster Jam is one that continues to live on. So Gravedigger actually never going to die. Going to continue to drive around and do the Monster Jam circuit. All right. So we talked about sports travel. It's not new, but it's booming. And let's give you 3 reasons to believe that. So number one, the duration of the trip is changing. 62% of trips are between 2 and 6 days. I think if you look at this between 4 and 7 days, that's like 43% of trips. So there's not a skewing to the 2 days. It's people are coming, they're doing other things. 10% of global tourism is sports related. It's a big piece of the pie. And then 84% of folks that we surveyed of those 2,000 are already planning their next sports related trip. Uh, the reason behind the trip is very critical. So let's continue to move on through this data. Before we get into why they're traveling, let's understand what they're traveling for. And we've got to do that like American, is it football, is it soccer dance here? We see the very dark blue bar to the left, 36%. We're talking about the thing that you kick with your feet. Now in the US, the most popular sport is football, the one that you throw through the air and potentially saw the Seahawks and the Patriots play the other night on television. Uh, it's interesting. As you dig into the data, global views here are not going to work for us. We've got to get into the regional and we got to get into the market level before we can really make sense of what the actions we are to take. So you'll see football, soccer, baseball, basketball, American football, and ice hockey all greater than 5%, with tennis, car racing, golf, and marathons following that. In the US, it's football, basketball, and soccer. And if you were to zoom into the markets, you'll see things where like the Savannah bananas coming to town create an incredible yield and length of stay opportunity for you. So the takeaway here is geography is a filter, and you got to use the filter in the most granular way possible to understand the trends. Now, let's talk about why this matters for the VR audience. When this data was first created, it was we leveraged it for the hotel audience, and I said we were missing it. We're missing an opportunity, guys, because half of folks are traveling with family and friends. And what do we know? We travel with family and friends. Got a couple options. Get a couple hotel rooms. It's less fun, more cost effective, and a whole lot more fun to go get a vacation rental. So as we think about half of these people being essentially eligible, and you think about more of that, think about your size of your vacation rental, it's really critical to not just say, like the big box hotels downtown are going to take all the demand. That's not true. It's just flatly not true. And I think you think about families, extended families, groups of friends. There are so many nuances. Like you travel with four guys to an Indiana University football game, you want four beds. Can share a bed. It's more comfortable with four. If you're traveling with an extended family, right? Maybe you have a young child who's not going to the game and you need a babysitter or someone the family's going to stay back. You need a lot more space. Space has a lot more value to you if you're thinking about a vacation rental. So, why people are traveling is important. As we said here, some are traveling for the sporting event themselves and then continuing on. What we see here in the middle is spending time with family and friends and experiencing the destination. It's a long way to go to Kansas City. I hope you're getting some barbecue while you're there. So as we think about travel for the World Cup and travel to other events, really critical to understand the trends in your market. And the partner success team here at Expedia Group is really good at that. And then Garrett and the other folks that work for Escapia can also give you that insight as well. Okay, 6-point play. I made it up. I don't know if a 6-point play exists in any sport. It exists today in this webinar, as long as Taylor lets me. So Taylor's got no problem with six. I'm going to roll out 6 fast facts on things that you can actually do. So let's jump into the first bucket of 3. How do you take advantage of this? First, start with the most broad aperture you can get. And what Taylor was saying earlier was like music to my ears. It is all about conversion. And if you think about the blockers to conversion, it's information. I don't know the types of beds. I don't know where this is relative to the stadium. I don't know if there's a subway line or if there's a transportation to it. So think about content. Create fan love in our Escapia's guest guides. Think about the proximity to the stadium. Make it really easy, right? Like just call it out. And so the person doesn't have to go look on where your property is on a map versus the stadium, because potentially you don't give them the address up front, right? So like think about how you take the guesswork out of it to reduce one barrier conversion. Helpful tips. I promise I'll stop talking about IU football at some point. I went to Miami Gardens for the national championship game. If anyone's been to that stadium, they realize leaving that stadium is quite truly hell on earth. There is no good way out of that stadium. And so what I learned was that you need to take an Uber shuttle to a lot to then get an Uber. Had I had that information earlier in the week, I would have made a different decision than I did. But I didn't have that information because I, in this case, didn't stay in a vacation rental host and with a vacation rental host, and that was my fault. Lesson learned. Two, own the seasons. Um, we can kind of tease it out with World Cup, right? Is we have an idea there's going to be a lot of demand, and everyone is cued to that demand. But you got to own the seasons, right? And understand where there's actually true margin to play with, and understand where there's real demand that you can kind of generate for yourself through seasonal special or coupon codes throughout Expedia's rate managers. The third piece, stand out with promos. I'll say it up front. If you live next to a stadium with a global event and you have a promotion, you are leaving money on the table, and I would not suggest you do that. If you want to stand out and you're competing with other like hosts in a reasonable distance from the stadium where there are lots of alternatives, stand out. Early booking, lock that booking in, or use member only. You're not sure who's coming to town to watch the Monster Jam? That's fair. Put a member only deal on, and I guarantee you, if you have a platinum person come stay at your property, what that means is they're platinum in our One Key loyalty program, which means that they have over 30 trip elements for the year. And there is a high correlation between people who travel a lot and people who know how to respect your house. So, properties with promotions, 41% higher conversion with those without. Con Content and promotions are what going to turn that flywheel. Now let's jump into like the real nitty-gritty of it to go deeper and find your edge. Um, I think one of the biggest under-levered dollar drivers in the United States is youth sports. And I don't think I'm alone in this because private equity firms, for better or worse, are buying up youth hockey leagues, soccer leagues, travel basketball, and it's a business. And how do those companies make money? Hosting tournaments. And what do you do if you have a tournament? You travel to the tournament. But we're not focusing on that because like who actually knows when there's an under 12 soccer tournament? We're working on getting our partners even better data here. We're partnered with a company called Predict HQ, and we hope to extend that to our partners in the near future. But if you're a local expert and you have this information already, win on relevance, right? Like again, if I'm searching for a stadium, I expect you to have, an NFL stadium in your content, the distance to it, if you're close to it. I would never expect anyone to have the distance to like a park or a youth field. That's going to set you apart. That's going to answer the traveler's question up front. Like, okay, yeah, relevant to me. I can just travel there quickly. Secondly, everyone knows the value of reviews, and I think the hardest time to get a good review is when you're paying a lot of money for something, right? So, and we all know this. If you're going to drive yield for the World Cup, you got to do a little extra too. Like, it would be great if you could get more for the same always and expect the review to be the same. But I think we've observed that's not always the case because travelers have a higher expectation when they have a higher dollar value that they're assigning to the property. They're paying for it to book it. So think about how you can earn rave reviews. Garrett and I were chopping up a little bit async before this. We did this presentation talking about like decorating, right? Like how do you make it feel cool when you're in the venue? Go spend 15, 20 bucks on some cool decorations. If you were in San Francisco last week or you're in an area where you could have a vacation rental and you understand the person's traveling from Seattle, put a Seahawks blow up balloon when they arrive. Like small touch will take you 30 minutes, can have it delivered. It will pay off in reviews. And guess who gets to see the reviews? Everybody who's staying at your property, not just people who are coming for an event year over year. When people feel like the host cares for them, they're going to book the property. Get to that by a higher review score because you created a unique experience that person's going to remember and write about in your review. Lastly, capture more demand. And this hits the World Cup too. We're going to get into a situation where, like in any tournament, you're guaranteed to play early. You may or you may not make the championship. And that creates uncertainty for hosts, which isn't great. If you have the functionality to ensure that you have cleaning lined up and you can turn over the property if you need to, think about last minute deals. There are a lot of people looking for supply, and there's going to be much less demand. A lot of people start the tournament, fewer people finish the tournament. How do you get that demand? Well, you got to stand out. Last minute deals is a great way to do that. We can fence it, and it's just for the event, right? Just for the state dates. So you can be very, very dynamic in your strategies here for revenue. And we think last minute deals is one way in a very targeted sense that you can do that. So we also said, early, and I'll reiterate here, is like we've got a lot of people who are staying for the event. So if you want to think about length of stay discounts and promotions that lock people in, you're obviously turning over less. People are going to go experience, the city. I personally know folks who have like said, all right, I'll stay in like slightly less nice place, still great place, because I want to spend an extra night in the city and I want to try XYZ restaurant. It's a great way that you can be more approachable to a wider swath of travelers without having to give away yield because you're just giving a discount to anyone. Cool. So we're gonna show you a couple examples here. Always good to make it real. Across from Wrigley Field, patio free parking, iconic rooftop views on Wayland. Probably can't say Cubs in the title. I'm guessing there's some licensing issues there, but I know exactly what I'm getting when I show up at that property. And if you see the reviews, 10 out of 10, 50 verified reviews, it's clear that they've taken the time to make this a really cool space so that when you're at the ballpark, it doesn't just feel like you're at a vacation or a home. It almost feels like you're in Wrigley Field, to be honest. Next. Just that example. Recap. All right. Understanding macro trends. Number one, sports tourism is huge. You should care. If I haven't made that clear, I'm not going to make it clear to you in the next 30 seconds. It's a big deal, and it's up to you to take advantage of that. We're here to enable that and make that very easy. Dig into local details. Great data from Taylor on the early slides on, how these markets are performing. Make sure that you're doing a great comparison so that the information can really generate action. We've seen the World Cup. It's going to have lower demand in the West Coast markets. And then lastly, leverage your Escapia features and make your listing more relevant to key sports moments and attractions. We always, we always aim to give Escapia folks features first. So as we roll out new features and new ways to target travelers, we're going to make sure that those are in your hands first. And if they're not in your hands first, they will be in your hands shortly after that. But again, we always try and preference releases to our Escapia folks because they're great partners and they give us great feedback. So it's a great way to learn. Really appreciate the time. And Garrett, I think I'm gonna turn it back over to you to kind of close us out.
I am. Yeah. So I wanted to go ahead and say first off, thank you both to Brandon for joining us, taking the time out of the day, brings some really, really relevant insights, I think, in terms of how you can take that large scale input and bring it a lot more local. I want to thank Taylor as well for joining us. I think that was some really excellent statistical information to share too. It helps add a lot of impact into that analysis. And one thing that I do want to note is what Brandon said is very important for us at Escapia. We do our best to bring all of the best things that Verbo has to you first as the preferred partners. And so a lot of what we covered today is the latest features that we're trying to bring you to take advantage of some of these tools. Things like the promotions, the last minute and early booking. Those are great ways for you to secure everything from large scale to hyper local events. I think it was a really good insight because I'm sure we have all been to our cousin's Little League game, or we've gone to go see the Monster Jam. I'm sure I would personally like to go see the Savannah Bananas. I too have seen some backflips, which makes it a little more fun than most games. And putting a focus on what you can do for these events, make sure that you can ride that wave of sports tourism without having to stick to just the big games. I know the Olympics is coming. I know the World Cup is here. It's fast approaching, but that doesn't mean that if you're not in one of those major cities, you will never be able to experience the advantage. And a lot of other property management companies in your area may be thinking, I don't have a FIFA match in my city. There's nothing I can do. And taking advantage of that gap is going to help your business stand out. So I wanted to say thank you to our panelists for joining us. I see that we don't have any questions as of yet, but I do want to note that we will be sending this recording out afterwards for everyone to be able to review. There was a lot of really good data points in there, and they might have gone by real fast. So they'll be coming soon. We also have, I want to say a hello to, and thank you to those who may not have been able to join us live. We have quite a few of you, so I hope you enjoy this recording and you're able to see all that information and bring it to your business. Taylor or Brandon, I want to ask, do you have any last notes or things you want to say to those in the audience?
No, just appreciate, the focus here. I think it's a great opportunity. And Taylor, I love your data. Can't wait to see like another cut in 2 months to see how it's pacing.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we'll be around presenting more and love to do this again. This was great. Thank you guys so much for having us.
awesome. Cool. You got a great team here to support you. So if you have any questions, I think you're probably on the dot to answer those, whether they be live now or after the call.
I am. So I think as we go here, we do have one question that I'm seeing. Julia's asked Taylor, can you clarify what you mean by West Coast lower demand for FIFA matches?
Yes. So what we were saying there is that just it's not where there's a lot of like semifinal or final matches that we were seeing. So the demand just seems to be a bit lower where there's more matches happening in Kansas City and Philadelphia.
Perfect. Uh, In that case, I do see no more questions, so I want to give us all a little bit of extra time today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope everyone has a really good rest of your day. Please, as Brandon said, we at Escapia, we're here to help. Everybody at KeyData, they've got really valuable insights. They're here to help. We want your business to win and succeed. So I hope everyone gets to take some learnings from this, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cool. Thanks.